Let's talk about the AAA Hobbies end of season race. Against stellar competition, unfortunately I did not prevail and I did not win anything in that race. So they had box stock and tune class categories, and yes, I had entered this car here in box stock, and this was a pretty mighty car. It was very fast, but I amped up the battery voltage a little too much, and so this ended up coursing out at inopportune times. That's the way the ball bounces sometimes. When everybody is going lightning fast, then yeah, basically the most stable car will win when you have speed, speed, speed for everybody. So unfortunately, this was not it. There were other cars that were awesome that the racers had to like dumb down a bit because they were really fast cars if they didn't dumb down the cars. By dumbing down, I mean they had to lower the battery voltage to such a point where the light car would stay on the track. So this is a little bit heavier than a mock frame. This is an FMA chassis, and so this has more stability than a lot of mock frames because it's got this larger cowl. Now, this cowl here is polycarbonate, and it's one of the special editions of the Gunbluster XTO. Yeah, so it's a very special edition, in fact, because they now have another car, the Copper Fang, which came out recently, and it's got the polycarbonate shell on top of that on basically the same color chassis. I believe it's the same color. It looks exactly the same according to the pictures. So yeah, whatever performance you'll get with this, it'll be like similar to the Copper Fang or vice versa. So yeah, so I had this as my box stock car. I had this as my tune class car. Now, most of you have seen this in action with bigger wheels, but this one I decided to replace the wheels with these 26mm smaller wheels than what I had before. Before I had these big honking wheels, and this is a very fast car before, and now it's a little bit slower with these wheels, but it stays on this particular track better. So we're going to take a look at the track, we're going to analyze it, we're going to see where people coursed out in the track, and yeah, you'll see where I coursed out in the track. So yeah, very, very cool. So what is so special about this car? This is a Super 2 chassis car, so it's one of my very few Super 2 chassis cars. I technically don't favor Super 2 as a tune class chassis, but a lot of people love Super 2, so I decided to give it a go. And yeah, this was mega fast. It's just that my battery voltages were a little too high. It's like there's this fine line between fast and stable and too fast and unstable. So you have to try to stay within that range where you're going super fast, but not so fast that you'll course out. And you don't want to go too slow, because if you go too slow, then other cars will beat you. But you want to try to figure out how fast you can go without going into a mode where you course out. So yeah, it's all about battery voltages, and unfortunately, my battery voltages were not there. They were just a smidge too high, and that's what caused the so-called end-over-end effect, right? So it's when the car rolls like this. It doesn't corkscrew, it rolls like this, front to back. And what ended up happening was it went on the tabletop, right? So here, it goes off the little ramp and then onto the tabletop, and boom, and boom. Now, how should I have prevented that from happening? So I can make the car a little bit heavier by weighing down the rear. So here, you see these are the weights I should have used in the racing event. However, I had these pancake weights. These are Mad Tang's custom black pancake weights. He basically black anodized these, I think these originally were silver pancake weights, and yeah, he anodized them with black paint. Very, very cool. And I had them on the rear before, and they provided just enough weight to get the job done. However, with too much battery voltage, there's not enough weight in the rear, so when it goes up and it comes down, you have like a really heavy diving head nose first kind of a thing going on, where too much weight will cause this rear part to just like flip over. So if I had more weight in the rear, instead of doing this large trajectory like that, I would have had a smoother lower trajectory, and that would have been like perfect for this track. But unfortunately, that's just how it goes, and I didn't adjust this when I needed to. You only get 3 chances, right? So first, second, and third lanes for the final, so that's it. And so I missed my opportunity for tune class. Even though this was a mega fast car, people will tell you this was a mega fast car. This was like a speed demon, but unfortunately, it was a little too fast. So that's a shame. Oh well, that's the way the ball bounces. So Normally I had a little less weight on the side as well, and I added more weight for this one. I could have added more weight here, and I could have done better than I did. But oh well. And so here is my other super fast car that I was considering entering, but this was a little less stable than the bear car. So I love Kumamon, right? Kumamon's awesome. There's a reason why I like Kumamon. Well, I love the coloring, right? So whenever you have Kumamon, you have a black, white, and red kind of styling, and that's really striking. Those colors are really striking. Here I also have a black and red thing going on here, and with the mock frame where the weight is more towards the front of the car, it's very, very nice for any of those courses that have inclines. So on the bottom, you'll see what is the issue. So no, you won't see it because I covered it up. So here I had a bend in this side, this wing right here. So it was, for whatever reason, a course out or multiple course outs caused this wing to bend upward, and so the alignment of the damper weights were not exactly like vertical. So they were bent inward. So I had to like rebend it out, glue it down to make sure that it was reinforced, and yeah. So here I've developed this little scheme right here where I have two side plates, and that should hopefully protect this car from bending the same way that it did before. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Only time will tell. If somehow this thing is coursing out by hitting this side here, it's going to bend anyway. But I think this little added protection here will definitely help it. So I don't know. You can comment on the comment section down below, and you can tell me if you think that this is going to actually help the situation. But yeah, I found out by using the measuring stick that yes, this does in fact clear the 1mm requirement for measurement. And so there's another way that you can test Tamiya products without the use of an actual official measuring stick. So if you take these two slide rules right here, these are like little tiny rulers that you can purchase almost anywhere. They're about half the size of what you need. So it's not 1mm, these are like half a millimeter each. If you just connect them together like this, you get 1mm. And then you can test underneath by placing this on a flat surface and sliding this underneath and here, and you can test to see that your car actually meets that 1mm requirement underneath the car. That's a little trick that I've discovered, and it works. So pretty darn cool. So this one here, the biggest problem with this red wing on a Super 2 chassis, so this is one of those things you snap on and screw down, and if you've ever removed this wing, you'll find that this clip, these two clips right here, they can bend and stretch. And so when that happens, then you see, you can't see right here because I snapped it back in place, but you can see there's a force flex bend over here. It's whitish, as you see here. That means it bent beyond what it should have. So what I had to do to get this to clear the 1mm requirement is to slowly, I take a pair of scissors here and I'll show you, slowly lift this up so that this part, this clip part here matches this clip part here, because before it was like a little bit higher than it should have been, and that was causing a snag underneath the official measurement stick. So if there's a snag, then your car is DQ'd. So you want to make sure that all of your dimensions and the measurements underneath the car are within the guidelines of mini four-wheel drive racing. So yeah, you want to try to make sure that even though there's a bend here, you can just pull it gently so that you can get a totally flat surface so that the measuring stick will be able to pass through freely. So very, very cool, yes. And for this track, I used a torque-tuned motor, but I didn't have the highest battery power in it, but it was just a little too much, and that's why I coursed out. So other people who were more successful used the atomic-tuned motors. I used a torque-tuned motor. I've now progressed from atomic to torque-tuned only because my torque-tuned motors are like, they're still working. My atomic-tuned motors, one by one, they started dying, and I have to basically break in a new batch of atomic-tuned motors. So yeah, until that point, I just have these cars here with torque-tuned motors in them, and some people like torque-tuned motors, and others, they're okay with using torque-tuned or atomic-tuned depending on the application. Some people just swear by torque-tuned motors and they don't use anything else, and that might work for some tracks, but not all. So that's why you have to basically try to expand your arsenal and have both atomic-tuned and torque-tuned available depending on the situation. So you might ask, so what about Rev-Tuned motors? They have to have an application. Yeah, they do. If everybody else has a Rev-Tuned motor and you race with a Rev-Tuned motor and the requirement is, yeah, use a Rev-Tuned motor, then yeah, then you have to use a Rev-Tuned motor. But in general, torque-tuned and atomic-tuned motors are quote-unquote better than Rev-Tuned. Rev-Tuned might be faster in straight lines, but around curves, it just slows the car down a lot because there's not enough torque around turns. So you have to deal with that in a Rev-Tuned motor. If you're just racing like full-on drag race, and your car is very light, then yeah, use that Rev-Tuned motor. But otherwise, use torque-tuned or atomic-tuned if possible. So yes, very, very cool. This also has a torque-tuned motor in there. So not all torque-tuned motors behave the same way, right? So it's just like box stock motors. You take a motor out of its package, you put it through its break-in process, and then at the end, you realize that, hey, some torque-tuned motors are just faster than other torque-tuned motors for whatever reason. They generate more RPMs. They just last longer too for whatever reason. So I placed my most powerful torque-tuned motor in this one, and that's why this is like a really, really fast car because it's got that super fast torque-tuned motor in it. And I think in its heyday, it was like really, really fast, really, really sharp around corners. It's getting a little long in the tooth just because of the battle damage that it suffered on the wing. But other than that, like, it's really, really fast. And before I had aspirated rollers on it, and I replaced them with these solid rollers. So the solid rollers seem to be working out very well. They do give me a slightly less top speed than the aspirated rollers, but that's okay because I now have a lot more stability with this, and there's more weight in the front side if I wanted that. So yeah, very, very cool. The back side, I just have to be mindful that this is completely perpendicular to the floor. So basic, or the track that is. If these start bending inward, I have to replace the structure right here, the plates. So plates can warp and bend. It's very hard to bend them, but they do, in fact, bend. So yeah, we have another possibility here. So this third possibility I tested in the track, and unfortunately it didn't do as well as I wanted it to, but that's okay, because this is like, I wanted to see if this would be like good on this particular track. So it's got this flappy kind of rear right here. And yeah, I have not been able to get this to work very well on the various tracks that I raced on. So I would always pull it out and place it on the track at any of these events, and I would find out that it would just course out for whatever reason. And so I just like show this as like a possibility. It's not like a completed finished racing product. And so yeah, it's this thing. I don't think it's this basically. I think it's my front roller system that I have to basically redo again and again until I find something good for VS chassis. But yeah, a fellow racer and sensei has like successfully used this system, this flappy system, on his car. It's an MS car. Now this is a VS chassis. He successfully used it on an MS car, and I was very impressed with his skills and technology that was on the car. It was a very fast car. It was a very, very fast car, and he successfully used the flapper system on there. Very cool. So he had tighter springs than I did on mine, so that made a lot of sense, right? Because you really want as tight springs as you can on these kinds of flapper systems. You don't want it to be loose like this. This is a little too loose. And part of me, the reason why I use looser springs than tighter springs is because I have this like mentality where it's not going to flip as easily as I want it to with tighter springs, but you kind of want that. You want that little bit of tension right there that this is not offering. So yeah, he crafted his whole car very, very well, and it worked on the track. So yeah, kudos to him. His car is very impressive, very, very impressive. So I just have to work on this a little bit more, and we'll get this race worthy. We'll try to fix up the front, and we'll try to fix up the flapper system. Hopefully it'll be a very formidable car soon. Very, very cool. But yeah, the wonderful thing about the Kumamon Racer is the fact that, you know, like Mr. Bear here, Kumamon, Mr. Kumamon is just like, he doesn't need a shell, right? He doesn't need a shell covering up, or what is it called, the steel cage that covers up this, the rolling cage or something like that. It doesn't need that, and it makes it a lighter car without that extra piece. And I also removed the spoiler, and that makes this an even faster car because it's lighter without the spoiler. Now, for my box stock version of this car, I've got one right here where I do something very similar. I removed the spoiler, and I don't even have Kumamon in there. In fact, I don't know what happened to Kumamon. I guess I lost it, or maybe it's in the package still somewhere. But yeah, I don't have Mr. Kumamon in there, so I don't need it. I don't want it. I know that if I add the animal in there, while it may look cute, it's going to like mess with the balance of the car. So I'm just putting the bare essentials on here, just like you saw in my black pink car, which is the VZ chassis car. What was it? That was the, I think it was the Aero Avanti Black Special, and that was a very fast and formidable car. On certain 3-lane tracks, it was so fast. So I wanted this car to be similar. Now, this is not going to win any races anytime soon. People love the look of this car, but it's not going to win any races anytime soon. Why? Because it's got a 4-to-1 gear ratio in there, and so with the small wheels and 4-to-1 gear ratio, it's going to be very hard to win a race unless you're on a specific track that allows the details of this car to shine, and that's very few tracks out there. So if there was a racing event where you could put a 3.5-to-1 gear in this car to replace the 4-to-1 gear, this would have a better chance of winning. But unfortunately, there's going to be very few of those events around. Most events will say, whatever is in the box, that's what you have to use for box stock. So yeah, that's just the way the ball bounces. So yeah, but otherwise it looks like a pretty cool car. And yeah, the version of this Kumamon that I had for Tune Class, it didn't use these wheels. These are small wheels. It used much larger wheels, the larger wheels of the Jado A. So those wheels here made this very fast, a speed demon. But using smaller wheels, you lessen the speed, but you have more stable car. It stays on the track better. So very, very cool. So let's take a look at the track, analyze it, and I'll show you the 5 sticking points that everybody had issues with. So here's the track that is the end of season race, and you'll see there's lots of turns, there's tabletops, there's inclines. Yeah, very, very cool. Now, let's take a look at the first item. The first item is the direction of the track. So it's going from the right side to the left, and you see there's basically a 90-degree right turn right there, and then there's a wave. And so then after the wave, there is the lane changer. Yes, the lane changer. There were a few people that basically coursed out right there. If you go too fast, you're going to course out. If you were like on the inside lane, you probably won't course out. But if you're going faster and faster through successive revolutions of this, you might course out on this, especially if you don't have brakes on your car. So there are box stock cars that have brakes, and there's ones that don't have brakes. So VZ chassis, MS chassis, they don't have brakes, so they're going to fly off the track. Oh, and Super 2 as well. So yeah, the ones that fare reasonably well on lane changers are typically FMA chassis and AR chassis, but that's not always true because my Avante Violet Special, which is right here, I really wanted to race this, but it kept coursing out at the lane changer, so I really couldn't race it. If this were heavier, then I think it would have a chance, but no, I think it was too fast for this track, unfortunately, so that's just how it goes. So after the lane change, the first obstacle is that little jump, and that jump is enough to kind of like jolt a lot of people, but I think basically everybody cleared that with no issues. And then the second jump is where issues arose. So after the second jump, you have that tabletop. And the tabletop right there is where people like me would do the end-over-end flipping, and that's not good. That's just, that's just terrible. If your car is not weighted properly, then you won't land properly, and you'll end up flipping end-over-end or coursing out there. So yeah, that's what happened with me. And then you go around these various curves to the incline, and that's where you meet your final obstacle, which is that little tabletop after the incline. And that's where a fair number of cars coursed out right there. So yeah, if you go too fast around that incline and back down, then you will basically course out of this. And that's where I ended up coursing out with this car here because I went a little too fast around the incline, yeah. So yeah, those are the 5 different areas that are like considered challenges here. And the challenges, like a lot of people were able to dial in their cars so they can deal with the challenges, and that really meant for box stock lowering the battery voltages, and for Tune Class using the proper brakes on it. And with the proper brakes, you can basically negotiate any track. But yeah, the big problem is if you put too much brake on your cars, then you can get stuck in the valleys, right? So the valleys of the incline. So yeah, if you're not going fast enough, you can get stuck on the incline that goes up the incline. If you use too much brake, you can also get stuck in the valley as well, the valley on the down slope. So yeah, that's just how it goes. You have to find the right brake settings, the right amount of thickness for your brakes, and you might have to basically shave a little bit away on your brakes to get the exact dialed in brake thickness that you need. So yeah, very, very cool. Lots of great competition. There were some really fast cars in this track, and kudos to Chris and John for setting up the layout of this track. It was very challenging. Yeah, lots of good stuff on it. So it's basically a spread out version of the home tracks that I have here, where people come and race in the living room right here that I have in my abode. Very, very cool. So for the season points and winners, congratulations to Chris, Cyril, and Cooper for box stock, and Chris, Carlos, and Cyril for Tune Class. Very, very cool. And for the final races, for the season ending race, here are the winners for box stock and Tune Class. So everybody, if you like this video, please slam the like button, subscribe to my channel, you'll see more videos just like this one. Until next time, everybody, see you, bye.